Yo, what's good, guys? I'm back again, another fragrance video, another one. Can you believe it? I did say what this one will probably be. It's French Avenue Grow, Jean-Christophe again. Another new scent. This one I think was announced quite a while back. I've seen quite a bit about this scent online. Various influencers have been, sort of having the early bottles, talking about it, promoting it. To be honest, that's been going on for at least 2-3 months now. You've seen people with the bottles of this, the early bottles. I think I might be the first person who's not actually a quote-unquote influencer who might have bought a bottle with their own money who's going to talk about it, at least, in long-form review. So yeah, I'm going to give you guys my impressions on Grow. I don't necessarily expect I'm going to love Grow like I do Frostbite, but, we'll see what we get. I'll give you a little update on Frostbite, actually. So we got Frostbite here. We did the little video on this. To be honest, for Frostbite, the Frostbite video, probably because a lot of people are checking for these scents, it's not really the sort of scents I normally cover on the channel. I'm normally doing more niche, more sort of really sort of obscure stuff that other people don't talk about. So appreciate all the reviews on the, all the views on the Frostbite video. It's nice to see my videos get a few hits, obviously, because something I'm talking about, something that's sort of popular, sort of, it's got a lot of sort of buzz around it, I guess, and it's affordable too. But yeah, Frostbite, I've been wearing Frostbite this week. I absolutely love it. My opinions from the video haven't changed one bit. If anything, I like it even more than I did. I got the backup. I've got another backup coming. That's how much I like it. I don't want to do a second review on it, but just to say that I'm really enjoying Frostbite. Everything about this scent really works for me. I love the smell. I really like how it smells when it dries down as well. The later dry down. It has something I didn't mention in the review. It has a little bit of that like laundry sort of clean, musky sort of thing. Need did say that apparently that's been woven into this and it's going to be part of the DNA that's going to be in his future scents for Jean-Christophe. So there's a little bit of that in there. Definitely get that in the later dry down. The later dry down for me is really pleasant. I love it all the way through. I just, when it dries down, and it's not offensive. It's just so sort of casual and comfortable is how I would describe it. It feels very comfortable to wear this scent. I love the way it smells at the top, obviously. I just think it's a great creation. In this style, it might not be super complicated. It might not be super natural, but the blending of it for me is top notch. So yeah, Frostbite, just a little update on Frostbite, that I love Frostbite. I actually think it's one of Jean-Christophe's best creations in a sort of a fresh, a fresh style of fragrance. If you want to know what the other ones are, they are Aventus, no surprises there. Amore Citron, it's very niche, it's very expensive, but it's amazing. If you're interested in Jean-Christophe's other scents, check out my video on Amore Citron. I've got the only review in the world on that scent, that goes in depth into that scent. That's an absolute banger. It's very upscale smelling compared to something like this. It's very naturalistic, beautiful scent. But Frostbite is in there with those two scents. And this one as the more designer sort of cousin to those scents, I would say. This is his best one that's in a more designery style. And he does have others. He doesn't have a huge amount. But he does have some other ones that I've actually talked about before. Match Point Cologne, the Lacoste. He's got a few for Lacoste. He's got various things dotted about, but none of them really capture that like beautiful, like fruity vibe. Especially considering the unique profile of some of the fruits in this. You got the mango and the blueberry sort of thing going on. This one, absolutely gorgeous. I love it. I love it. I think it just smells so clean and pleasant. And yeah, it might be hard to believe, but one of my all-time favorites already. That's how good I like it. That's how much I like this one. So yeah, Frostbite, just to, re-hype Frostbite, I guess. Not that, I'm trying to hype it or anything. I'm just giving you how I feel about it. I've seen reviews online, and to be honest, they're leaning fairly favourable on Frostbite on the whole. there's definitely people that are sort of getting what I'm getting in terms of it's super, super versatile, super easy to light with a little bit of a unique twist. There's quite a few people getting that. People have commented the performance isn't huge, which is one of the things I definitely sort of picked up on, although the juice is fresh. So, it may mature a bit, but for me, it's perfect as it is regardless, even if it doesn't get any stronger. I like the level of performance here. It's not super beast mode. It's like I said, it projects nicely for the first kind of 2-3 hours, perhaps, not super strong. And then it's just comfortable. It's a comfortable sort of later dry down where you just smell kind of clean, really. It's a little bit of fruitiness if you really dig into it. So I love Frostbite. Some people obviously aren't loving it. That's fine as well. Like, we don't all have to agree about fragrances. There doesn't need to be a consensus. I think I wanted to say that because I've seen some negative comments on it, not sort of understanding how someone could like this. We all get different things from fragrances, is what I'll say. That doesn't mean that someone's wrong and someone's right. It's just, one person sort of feels a certain way or gets a certain thing. Another person doesn't get that. I could sort of disagree and say, no, they haven't smelt, their nose isn't sort of, but I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say people get different things. For example, I had a friend who got this. He blind bought it because he really liked what I said about it. He doesn't actually think it's that great. I don't think he's not into it that much. Another guy did a decant for, he got it and immediately was like, this is really impressive. So it just shows you there's a range of sort of what people get from scents. Not everyone's going to get the same thing. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean anyone's right or wrong. It just means there's, it's a subjective thing. And that's, to be honest, that's one of the most sort of interesting things about the hobby is the variety of things that people get. I certainly hope that, I get something a bit different to what other people get at times. We've all got our own sort of tastes and the certain notes that we pick up and stuff. But anyway, I love it. And hopefully we're at the level where, even if I was the only person in the world that loved this, I would still love it. I'm not looking for people to sort of support, I could kind of, it doesn't matter what other people think at the end of the day. If you're a fragrance enthusiast and you're truly an enthusiast, you don't care what other people think about, the scents that you love because you love them. You don't need a consensus around things. You just need to love what you love. No one should really sort of play, what reviewers and people are saying should not feed into that at all, or I kind of see it a lot in the hobby, to be honest. These sort of hype train scents that people gravitate to, they don't normally go and sort of explore for themselves, maybe find certain notes or perfumers they resonate with. They just follow, the latest sort of hype train, and it's fair enough because I guess that's what people do in general, but it's a little bit sad because I think people would really find more of their own taste if they did a bit more exploration, around sort of what they liked and deviated from the normal sort of, some of the normal releases. It's kind of like when you see niche scents and people, got a bunch of Louis Vuitton and Xerjoff, Naxos and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, that's just, everyone's got those. They're just the run-of-the-mill kind of scents. Someone says they're into niche fragrances and they rattle off like LV and stuff. I'm like, no, you're not really into niche fragrances. These are very commonly sort of appreciated scents. They're also very expensive, actually. Anyway, Frostbite, loving Frostbite. I really, really like rate this for the money. And I even rate it above quite a lot of much more expensive stuff. Like I mentioned, the LVs. The LVs for me, like, first of all, the perfumer that makes them, Cavalier, I don't think he's as talented as Jean-Christophe. The LVs have quite impressive openings on the whole. The bases in those scents are a little bit sort of weak, I would say. They very much lean into kind of syntheticness, shampoo-y vibes. Not really my favourite sort of thing for fresh scents. The ones in that line that are leaning fresh, afternoon swim, imagination, all those ones. I prefer how this one smells on the dry down. There you go. How could someone say that? I just said it. And I prefer this one. So there you go. But that's a Jean-Christophe thing. That's how he blends the Ambroxan, how he balances it, how he tunes it. It's not surprising that he's able to do something like this because he basically is the lineage holder for this type of scent from the sort of, the originator of it, if we want to talk about where these sort of scents came from. Obviously, Aventus came in, Sauvage deliberately copied it. Everyone who says there's a scent that smells like Sauvage that then smells like this, well, where did Sauvage get its sort of, it all goes back to basically Jean-Christophe, and then you want to trace it back. It goes back to Pierre Bourdon. He was the one who really pioneered these sort of ambrox, ambrox and ambergris notes into sort of men's fresh fragrances. That's where it all comes from. So there you go. But this is certainly for 2026. This is a banging new interpretation on that style. Nothing sort of crazy original, but just sort of like boom, here it is. For not much money, this is how good he can make something smell, and it does smell damn good. So that's Frostbite. Sorry for the sort of just kind of going off topic there, but I just wanted to update on Frostbite because I know that video had a lot of views, and I have been wearing it, so I can share a little more how I feel about it. So that's Frostbite. So today's video, it's Grow. We got this in. This was kind of like, do we buy this? Do we not? Because it's not going to be like after Frostbite. It's like, how can it be as good as Frostbite? To be fair, Frostbite is in my style. That fruity, fresh thing is very much what I'm into. In general, if you see my other videos, I love those sort of scents. Hence why I love, Aventus, more Citron, the other things Jean-Christophe has done in that style. But Grow looks like it's going to be something very different. Don't really know what I'm going to get from it. Videos on it saying it's kind of a tonkery scent. Other videos I've seen said it's like smells like hazelnut. Jeremy Fragrance has been out. I think they gave him a bottle. I don't know how much they're paying him, but he's out on a lot of videos like spraying people with this and saying, this is my new fragrance or whatever. Well, not his fragrance, but this is the one that he's like, wearing and stuff, and he seems to be promoting it. So I presume they're, giving him some cash for that. But he's out there saying it's like a Nutella scent, but like a not such a sweet Nutella scent. So a few reviewers have said they get a nutty vibe from it. Neeb did say, because he had a bottle of it a while back and he was showing it in some videos, he said it's like kind of like a realistic Tonka. It does have the Tonka Absolute. It does have the LMR Tonka in it as one of the materials. Anyway, I'm going to read you guys the notes for it. It's got a whole bunch of notes, like literally a whole bunch of notes. So I'm not going to go too much into all of this. I'm just going to basically gloss over this. We'll give it a spray. I'll tell you what I get. And yeah, we won't go on too long today, hopefully. So top notes: saffron, Davana, Timur, pear, and dates. So mostly spicy, apart from the dates. Middle notes: rose, sandalwood, jasmine, peony, dates again, geranium, lily of the valley, custard. So a bunch of floral notes, dates again, so double dose of dates, and custard, which is, that's a concept note. That's what we're going to get there. And then base notes: cypriol, labdaman, dry wood, immortelle, vanilla, tonka, musk, cedar. So a fair few base notes. Dry wood is sort of like, that's not clear what that's going to be. There's a floral base, there's vanilla, there's tonka, which is supposed to be a very high quality tonka in this scent. So basically a whole bunch of notes being thrown at us for this. There is a video on French Avenue's Instagram featuring Jean-Christophe, and he talks about the creation of the scent. He talks about the artistic intent behind this, and it's very interesting. I love the videos where he explains his creative process. He talks about this as being a woody scent, like he says. I think he says it's a woody, addictive scent, and it's supposed to sort of develop a lot on skin. The whole Grow sort of concept of it is that as it dries down, it's supposed to sort of, it grows, it sort of changes and morphs. The woody aspect of it, it's meant to be that there's multiple types of wood that sort of, comprise the woody accord. And it's also supposed to be very long lasting as well. And there's sort of something he says he was inspired by a painter who sort of was painting nature various seasons and just kept doing it for kind of a few years, and he was inspired by that. So I love to hear that sort of thing, mainly because I can normally smell It might be a bit cliche, but normally when I smell one of his scents and I know what the sort of concept of it is, I normally get that. I can normally pick that out myself. So here's the box for it. Grow. It's got this like brown. So this time, totally different box. Brown. It's brown. It's got like some sort of like foresty sort of, you know, like there's some trees in there or something. It's a brown box with a little window on it. And yeah, pop it open. And there it is. There it is. So it opens, this one opens that way. And you got the bottle in there. Very attractive looking bottle. I do like this bottle actually. It is like plasticky. I'll take it out. It is kind of all like all this stuff around it, which is meant to be like the growth of the tree, I guess, or the, I'm not quite sure what that's about, but it's a very different design to the aromatics bottle. You can see the bottom there. It's all shiny. I don't normally like the shiny stuff, but anyway, nice enough bottle for a price, you know, for a fragrance at this price. Again, it's £40 approximately. You know, that's the sort of price for this. 40 to 45 pounds seems to be where the French Avenues sort of end up in the UK. Very good value for the presentation. And in the case of Frostbite, amazing value for what you get in the scent. Is this one going to be as good value as Frostbite? Am I going to like it as much? I highly doubt that, but I'm going to tell you guys what I get. I have sprayed it and used it, so I kind of know, but you know, let's get this. So sorry, not Frostbite, Grow. It's Grow. So let's get some Grow. Here we go. Woo! And the opening, guys, the opening of this is absolutely jaw-dropping. It is absolutely jaw-dropping. This opening, I've probably not smelt a better sort of opening for what I would describe as like a woody tonka scent. You know, that's got sort of like, it's not that sweet, but it's very rich. It's very, very rich smelling off the top. It's very rich. The word I would describe might be sort of luxurious, opulent. It's dense. It's rich. It's woody. I'll try and give you what exact. I'm gonna have to keep spraying this, but I'll try and give you what I actually get. That's right. I have to clear my nose. I've got a bit of a cold. It's almost kind of like, there's almost a gourmand sort of tone to it, but there's not as well. So the woodiness is almost kind of like this, like dark. The wood that I get is like this really dark sort of mahogany sort of wood sort of smell. It's and it's almost kind of like almost like varnished, or it's like a really sort of like, it's a really realistic but like multifaceted wood that I smell. And this is exactly what Jean-Christophe said went into the scent. He created this like woody accord from different woods. I get that. And it has this kind of it has this really beautiful kind of sweetness to accompany it, but it's not overly sweet. It's really not overly sweet. The way the sweetness is balanced, it's more woody than it is sweet, for sure. It's just a little touch of that sort of like fudge-like sweetness from the tonka, I think, that comes through. So basically what you get off the top, you get this really rich woody accord that smells like a dark wood, with a like a bit of a sort of sweetness from the, and it's kind of like a fudge sort of like sweetness from the tonka is what I get. That's what I get on the top. And it smells absolutely gorgeous. It smells delicious, I guess, but more than anything, it just smells luxurious. It smells opulent. It does have an oriental sort of vibe, a little bit with the spices, the varna, with the saffron. There's a little bit of that there, not very much. But I absolutely adore this opening. This is a sensational opening. It really is. Like, just on this opening, this is already worth the price of admission. And you're going to see why that's relevant. Because basically this opening, as amazing as this opening is, the scent does have different phases. It does change quite a bit on my skin. I can't tell you right now because I it's just going to be the opening while I'm on the video. But basically what I get from it as it transitions more into the scent, that middle section, which I read out, where you get rose, sandalwood, jasmine, peony, you know, dates, geranium, lily of the valley, custard. What I get from this in the middle, I get the rose. Like, the rose really comes through for me. Maybe I'm sensitive to the rose note, but I get quite a lot of rose in the middle section. It's not a massively overpowering rose. It just gives it a light sort of, like, you know, like Turkish delight. It gives it a little bit of that sort of sweetness to it. Yeah, so I get the rose coming through. It works very well with the rest of the scent. It gives it a bit more lift. It gives it sort of a slightly pink sort of hue to go along with the woods. To be honest, the dates, I don't massively get the smell of dates from this. Not like I do in like Luminous Night, for example. The date note, I don't really kind of get that. The custard, I can't really say I get kind of a custardy vibe from it either, to be honest, because there's so many notes in this fragrance. The things that I get from this, more than anything, I get the woody notes, I get the tonka, and I get the rose for sure. I get a little bit of the rose. And to be honest, the rose is not my favourite note. Like, there's certain notes, you know, this is just in fragrances, there's just notes some of us just don't see as sort of like appreciate as much. And I know rose is sort of like one of the holy grails in perfume, and so many sort of, you know, amazing perfumes use rose. It's not my note. Like, you know, I know it's sort of normally in women's fragrances, but even the sort of, you know, the ones, the you know, all the rose and oud kind of combos, they're not for me. I don't really like oud either, so that's quite an easy sort of pass. But anyway, I find the middle section of this scent, it starts to veer more feminine leaning because I get that rose and a little bit more of that floral vibe overall. So the middle section, not an absolute love for me. The opening, if it smelled like the opening all the way through, I would be in heaven. Like, that opening is just next level, guys. Like, seriously, like, what is Jean-Christophe thinking with what he's cooking here? This is just... Sorry. Yeah, I just get this kind of like varnished wood sort of like smell, but not in a sort of a chemically way. It's just really like rich and luxurious and dense. I hope I've given some sort of impression as to what you're going to smell on the opening, because for me the opening is easily the best part of this scent. Like I said, a bit more into the sort of the rose vibe. The thing is, this sort of oriental vibe from the spices and the sort of the florals that come in, it's not enough to sort of make the scent, you know, like, I don't like this, or it's just not me as much as it is on the opening. That's all. I do feel this would be a wicked fragrance, you know, like, you know, feminine leaning. I could wear this. To be honest, I haven't given this full wearings yet to give my full, you know, like, of the entire length of the scent. Maybe, and definitely on skin, it smells natural. It doesn't have any synthetic vibe whatsoever. It smells natural. There's all these things going on, you know, and I like I said, I haven't been able to like fully experience all the phases and the very deep dry down. I do think when it gets to the very deep dry down though, because I have like tested it a little bit, when it gets to the very, very deep dry down, everything sort of settles down, and that sort of rosy floral kind of thing in the middle section does tone down a bit. It goes a bit more into the wood again. That's kind of the impression I get. Super attractive smell, super sexy, but maybe not so much on a man. Maybe it's more sexy on a woman, to be fair. But I think the scent as sort of a £40 scent, this is phenomenal. This is niche quality all day long. Like, there were reviews out there saying that this was kind of like a more sort of niche version of like Stronger With You sort of thing. And the first time I got my nose in this, I was like, no way, this is not related to any designer scent at all to my nose. This is its own thing. This is niche. This is niche all the way through. Like I said, so luxurious smelling. Nothing in common with any sort of designer DNA to my nose. It's just really, really pleasant. I don't really get like a nuttiness either, to be fair. Like, you know, Jeremy was saying it's the Nutella fragrance. I don't really get that from it. I don't get nuttiness. I just get a fudge-like tonka with a variety, you know, with the sort of combination of woods that Jean-Christophe has put in there to create the woody accord. He called it an addictive woody scent. He said it was super long lasting. I can confirm that it is super long lasting. Like his, you know, any scent in this style that isn't synthetic, it's not absolutely like, you know, it's not a super strong like projector. It's not, it's dense, but it's not sort of thick, if that makes sense. So it doesn't project enormously, but it does create a very nice scent bubble. It creates a nice scent bubble, and it lasts incredibly long on skin. I even had, like, when just before I came on to do this video, I sprayed some on. I took a shower. I came back, and I tried to, like, it was just on my hand. I tried to clean it off, and it was still on my hand. I could still smell the deeper stage of it on my hand after a shower. So it lasted through a shower, basically. You could detect it. It's very long lasting. I would go as far as to say this will last all day on skin. It won't necessarily be projecting that much at that point, but it's definitely very like this, you know, the sort of, yeah, there's something in there that's sort of keeping it there for a very long time. So how do I feel about this scent? I like the scent. I think it's super good value, super luxurious smelling. I'll have to give it some more wears to truly, you know, determine whether it's something that, but to be honest, the price of it, you know, I've done a decant for somebody. If anyone's interested and wants to try it, I can decant it in the UK, because to be honest, it's something that I would have wanted to try a decant of, but it's just people out there aren't really checking for these things, so I have to always be the one to buy the bottle. I'm not upset about having this in my collection at all, because I think it smells great. I will test it out. I do think the rose, specifically the rose note, for me, is sending it a little more feminine. But the overall sort of DNA of it is beautiful. It really smells nice. You need to smell it. You need to smell the opening. The opening alone is worth the price of admission. Don't necessarily buy a bottle just to smell the opening like me, because I'm just a hardcore fanboy. But it's that opening is very impressive. It's a very impressive work. And yeah, the concept of grow, I'll have to, you know, really dig into it, or sort of, you know, give it full wearings to find out how the phase is sort of, you know, how it sort of works through the scent. But first impression is just that it's beautiful. There's potential in there. I mean, if I was to sort of create a version of this scent, because this DNA is so good, I think you could sort of spin it in different directions. I would love a version of this scent. Here's an idea, Jean-Christophe, if you're watching this. I would love a version of this scent, same DNA with the sort of the woods. Take out the rose and the floral section, put something like coffee in instead. You'd have something mind-blowingly good, because the woody part of it is just gorgeous. The woods and the tonka are just absolutely, like, the blending of that is just some next level stuff. But I would much prefer something else in there apart from the florals, like, you know, mainly the rose. Like, take the rose out and put coffee in instead. Then it would, I don't know if that necessarily would work, but in my mind, I would prefer something a little less, yeah, basically just not the rose. The rose isn't sort of doing much for me here. But it's still a gorgeous scent. And yeah, I highly recommend it. If you like the look of how this sounds, it's classification as a sort of how is it classified actually? Is it classified as a gourmand? It's an oriental woody. Okay, that's accurate. Oriental woody with gourmand sort of touches, mainly from the tonka. But overall, yeah, it's oriental woody, but niche in quality. It's very pleasant. If you like the sound of it, just blind buy it. It's 40 quid. You know, worst comes to worst, you can just give it as a gift or resell it. That's what I mean. Like when I'm talking about, you know, the Frostbite, and there's people, some people were disappointed by it. It's like, at the end of the day, guys, French Avenue, these are budget fragrances. So if you don't like it, you haven't lost much money. All you need to do is sell it on, or give it as a gift. It's like, it's just like, it's not worth sort of arguing with people about, it's not, it's not good or whatever. It's like, it doesn't really matter, does it? If I go and find another budget fragrance, basically, and there's plenty out there, or get something truly like niche, if you really know what you like. But I'm not disappointed I picked this up. I think this is another great piece of work from Jean-Christophe. His fingerprints all over this. The guy is just insane, the way he can do different sort of types of scent, but it's always with this sort of original there's always an original concept in the way it's blended, and it's always blended very, very seamlessly through the scent. There's a lot to unpack here potentially, but I'm just telling you what I get off the top. I do feel those notes that I said are the dominant notes, but there's like the pear, and there's like all these notes in here. It's a lot to sort of, but the DNA is really pleasant. So that's my 2 cents on French Avenue Grow. I hope that was helpful to someone. Looks like I said, I don't think there's a long form review on this or impression on this at all. Just influencers that have talked about this so far. French Avenue, if you're out there, that's all very well, but I don't think it's a great idea to have a lot of influencer content on a scent that's unreleased, like a long time before it's been released, because it just makes it kind of look like the brand only really cares about influencers, because people obviously want to check it out when they see those videos, and they're like, when's this come out? Can I get it? And that's obviously the purpose, is to get people to want to buy it. And I've seen some of these videos where people are commenting and they say, oh, can I buy this? Where can I buy this? And it's like, it's not out yet, it's coming out. And like, they're like, when's it coming out? And they're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know when it's coming out. But, they just get this bottle to promote a scent that hasn't actually been released. They don't know when it's going to be released. It's just the marketing is not totally sort of fine-tuned in those instances, because you need to know, ideally the customer needs to know, okay, this scent hasn't been released, when's it going to be released, so I can anticipate it, so I know when I can buy it, or even if they can pre-order it or something. But I just don't feel the marketing around influencers having a bottle 3 months early, and they've all got the bottle and they're all talking about it, and it just makes it look like it's like this little exclusive club for the influencers, and the customer is just like, oh, it's coming out sometime in the future. The customer doesn't feel valued at that point. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, there's just a little thing I've observed with some of the, the marketing for some of these brands. And I understand why they use these, quote unquote influencers to promote, because they have a large reach, and they produce sort of, a slick content for it. But maybe the timing to do with when they get the bottles, when they talk about the scent, that needs to be a bit closer to the actual release of the scent, potentially. And if they have got it very early, they need to be tuned in on certain aspects of, the release rollout. So if someone comes in their comments and says, when's this out? Where can I buy it? They can actually give a proper response, rather than, I don't know. And it's just like, well, you're the one promoting it, and you just don't know anything about the actual sort of the process of purchasing it. It's almost like this isn't a product that's going to be sold. This is just something that, I'm just promoting because it's just, my obligation as a, I've been given a bottle and some money or whatever, and I'm just promoting it. But there's no sort of like logical like chain to then the customer being able to purchase it. It just seems a little bit off in some circumstances, and it's something with this fragrance I saw quite a few times, people asking, when does it come out, where can I get it? And it was just like, question mark, like no one really knew. It does so happen that it was produced in January, so obviously those bottles were early bottles, but like Frostbite, these were all pumped out in January, so it's brand new juice, it's fresh. Maybe it will macerate and smell a bit different, smell a bit stronger, we'll find out. But yeah, very freshly produced juice. Came along with Frostbite. So we got Frostbite, and we got Grow here. Jean-Christophe, Hérault, French Avenue. This guy's killing it. Can't say that Grow is my most favorite thing ever, but it's really impressive for the price. I'm not disappointed I picked it up. It's such a sort of bargain at that price, and the opening For me, the opening alone was worth the money. The opening, guys, the opening is so opulent and luxurious smelling. I just think it's crazy. It's crazy. So there you go. That's Grow. That's what I can give you on Grow. Hopefully that was helpful to somebody. Leave me a comment, you know, if you want to ask any questions about Grow. I'm probably not your guy for that sort of scent in general, to be honest. It's supposed to be like a sexy date night scent, but my preference for those sort of scents is more, you know, some of the other things I've talked about or mentioned briefly, La Nuit de l'Homme, or even the last one I talked about, Lang and Brato. Lang and Brato is really the one that I smelled lately that I would rate that might be somewhat in this style, you know, the Tonkery sort of style. Lang and Brato over this all day long, but Lang and Brato costs £300, this costs £40, so you gotta consider the price. That's why this one is just spectacular value. So yeah, there's my piece on French Avenue Grow, guys. Next up is hopefully going to be Prode Envy. Hopefully, I can't guarantee I'm going to get that, but if I get that, I'll be the first person in the world to talk about it. You know, like, it's, you know, I think I'm going to like it. I've said the notes suggest to me some sort of variation on something that's sort of tangentially related to Aventus. It's not necessarily going to be like Aventus, but there's enough notes that it shares with Aventus that I think it might be something that's quite appealing, quite mass appealing, and maybe slightly sort of more ballsy than the, you know, some of the, you know, things like Frostbite or even the new batches of Aventus. It might be something that's got a little more oomph and balls to it than, you know, than like the new Aventus, basically. So we'll see about that. Otherwise, we'll see you when we see you. We'll see you on the next one.